start to investigate what is it that older athletes or people that just come from no athletic background, they don't have to be old, it might just be someone who's just has no athletic background, they're starting jiu-jitsu and now they've got to go against people who are athletic and they're struggling and they find themselves less explosive than their opponent, slower, the opponents have better cardiovascular endurance, etc., and they're struggling to win. And our question is, how do you take people like this and give them a game plan, not only just on the mat, but for a training program in general that pushes them in a direction where they can be very competitive against younger, fitter, stronger, more athletic opponents. That's the central insight that we're working with. Now in this section, we look at top game. And again, the general answer, the program that we're trying to push is we want to maximize body contact, advantageous body contact with our opponents, so that there's so much connection between you and your opponent that it just slows the match down and creates situations in top where you can start using body weight to pin, frustrate, and hold younger, fitter opponents for long periods of time and push them into areas where they start making mistakes to set up submission holds. As always, we're trying to funnel the action towards close body contact, and as always, from neutral position, there is no position which offers more advantageous body contact than half guard top. So we're trying to get a passing game which funnels everything towards half guard top position, and from there it's my earnest belief that older or less athletic players can overcome and pass even tough athletic guards, provided they can get these positions. If you can get chest to chest on a younger, fitter athlete than yourself, you have an excellent chance of passing if you can just follow some of the prerequisites that we point out in this video. Once we get there, we talk about the power of pinning. One of the great ways for older, less athletic people to tire, frustrate, and subdue more athletic opponents is to pin them for extended periods of time. So we have a long section on just how to hold someone down, how to immobilize them, and if they're more powerful and explosive than you, how to use mobility and go from one pin to another in combinations to hold people down for extended periods of time and exhaust and frustrate them. I say this a lot to my students. It doesn't matter if the opponent is twice as fit as you, if you make him work 4 times harder than you. He can be fitter than you, that's okay. But if you make him work 4 times harder than you, you can exhaust even someone who's twice as fit as you are in a relatively short period of time. It all comes down to relative work rate. Who's working harder? Obviously, all things being equal, it's unlikely that a 55-year-old man will be as fit as a 20-year-old athlete. It's not likely to happen. It's, I guess, possible in some extreme cases, but it's generally not the case. But if you make that 20-year-old work 4 times harder than you for 10 minutes,
yeah, I agree.
He's going to be exhausted and you'll be fine. So that's the general tactic. Create maximum body contact, funnel everything towards half guard top. Focus on half guard top as the premier passing position for older or less athletic people, and go into pins. Use the pins to cook people over time, so that you use time as a weapon. You use the things that older athletes are known for: tactics and patience, wisdom and patience. Use your grappling wisdom to slow it down, tire and frustrate, and then ultimately take them into submissions. I actually rather excited to talk about some of the submissions we teach in this video, but because I've never actually taught them on video before. One of them will be the American lock, which
American lock, what?
The Americana, and I've never taught that on video before, so I'm excited to do that. Things like the north-south strangle. I've never taught that on video before. So these are submissions which take almost no risk, because one of the themes of this video is that for older or less athletic people, when you go for submissions, you want to favor submissions that don't compromise your position. Now, some of the best submissions for younger athletes involve throwing your body off your opponent, going into leg locks, going into arm bars, triangles, etc., etc. Now, that's great if you've got the mobility for it, but a lot of older athletes are reluctant to do this. Like, hey, I got mounted on this guy, I don't want to take the risk of going for a triangle from here. What if I fall off? Now I've got to go through the whole process again. So we focused in this video on submission holds that don't require you to dismount from your opponent. So things like katagatame, the arm triangle from the top position, north-south strangle. You go for that. If it doesn't work, you sit on top of them. So there's no compromise to your position. And so the emphasis on the video is on high percentage strangle holds and arm locks, kimuras, etc., where if it all goes wrong, you don't lose your position. And that way you can use, as an older athlete, position over time to exhaust people. And as they exhaustion increases, the resistance levels goes down, that's when these submission holds start to work really well. There's some fun stuff in there. For example, I love teaching north-south guillotines, and this time I taught a variation that I always used to teach that I came up with many years ago called the east-west guillotine. So let's have a look at that now.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that.
Normally, in a north-south type situation, when we come in and go on the attack, we go straight on through, lock, and then pin our training partner's carotid right between our rib cage and bicep. And then from here we start the movement that takes us back into the north-south position. As we go through and connect our hands, we perform a push-off that brings us down. Our chin goes lower than our training partner's shoulder, and it's from here that we get the classic north-south strangle. North-south, of course, involves a pure belly-down finish. One thing I was known for was the idea of going further than this, and instead of going belly down, use a finish which ends perpendicular in a T position relative to our training partner. So from that same situation, we come in on a training partner and lock, just like so, and focus on taking our thumb all the way up to our belly button. Now, this time as our opponent tries to put in defensive hands, our whole thing is to get outside of our training partner's elbow. If you're inside his elbows, that's when they can start pushing up and causing problems here. So it's important always from here we get our ear to our training partner's tricep. And as we walk around, instead of us coming down to a belly down position, we're going to throw our head down to the floor and walk around to a position where we're perpendicular to our training partner's shoulders.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then from here, right shoulder comes down and it almost doubles the strength of the strangle. The key to these strangles from north-south, most people get wrong, is they try to lift their hands to their shoulder like they would for a guillotine, when in fact the emphasis is on bringing your shoulder down to your hand, the exact opposite of what you would normally do. The east-west strangle, because your hips are much higher, gives you a much greater ability to drive your shoulder down to your wrist and create a very, very strong form of contact. So regardless of what our setup is, when we lock up on our training partner, everything starts the same, and then from here we get outside of our training partner's elbows, and we get to our lock, and we come up into position just like so. And Brian will tell you, it creates a stranglehold.
Oh, that's awesome. You call this northeast?
It's east-west, because
East-west,
normally you're north-south, and then this one you finish at a T, so it goes east-west.
I've never seen this before, no.
Yeah. We also go over my approach to the American lock, which is quite different from conventional methods. It's a strange thing, Bernardo. The American lock is probably the first lock you learn in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
Your first day in class.
First class.
They teach you, get mounted, and do the American lock. Normally in Jiu-Jitsu, the stuff they show you on the first day is the most important stuff. It's the techniques you'll be using for the rest of your career. Elbow escapes, bridge and roll, things like this. The American lock is very unsuccessful in competition.
Very true.
You hardly ever see it. Man, it's been a long time since I can even remember a World Championship or ADCC an American lock being used. And I can't even think of one off the top of my head. So that's strange. Normally, those fundamental moves you learn in your early days are the moves you'll be using throughout your career. But the American lock is the exception. It's a move you learn on your first day, and yet you hardly ever see it being used at the highest levels. And I do believe there are some limitations to the move, which there's a reason why you don't see it so often, but I do believe that it's a better lock than most people believe it is. And I'm hoping to change people's mind about the American lock in this video and give some insights that'll make them more successful with it. Who knows, maybe it'll come into fashion at some point.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. Oh, Joy, and the one thing I was thinking here is like, your best student, Gordon, it's almost like the proof of what you were talking about, because many times, or most of the times, he always chased the chest-to-chest passing, getting the half guard, and when he gets there, he goes very slow. It's almost like slow motion.
Yeah, it's an odd thing about Gordon is that I believe his game, if he chooses to compete into his 40s, I don't know if he will, but he's problems with his stomach, but if he's able to do it for a long time, he's one of those guys who will be highly effective with his jiu-jitsu into his 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Because his game has no requirements for any kind of explosiveness or great flexibility. He has decent flexibility folding his body forwards, but that's the only kind of flexibility he has.
And sometimes he uses speeds on match, but he has that as a weapon, kind of like doing losing passes and that. But 80% of his passes are like using the
The
after.
vast majority of his passing is from chest to chest positions, and as a result, it tends to be a kind of guard passing which exhausts his opponents. You often see them fatiguing through a match while preserving his own energy.
Yeah.
And people think, oh man, Gordon must have the best cardiovascular fitness of anyone. He never gets tired, but his opponents are always exhausted. It has much more to do with work rate than anything else. His opponents are working 4 times harder than he is in those situations. And that's really what we need to do with less athletic students in this video. We're going to say, hey, if either age or your athletic background means you're compromised, your opponents are more athletic than you are, you got to do something. You got to have some set of tactics. You can't fight them the same way they're fighting you. And once less athletic people understand that, then they can become very, very successful in jiu-jitsu. I'm sure you guys have all had the experience. I mean, there's some guys, you walk into the gym, there's some guys in their 40s and 50s who are still highly effective on the mats. And they go with the youngest athletes. They may not beat the champions of that era, but they can give them one hell of a match. And I had plenty of students who are in their early 50s who can train with the best guys in the world, give them a tremendous workout where it might go 20, 30 minutes before there's a submission. And I really wanted to help other people around the United States and around the world to get into that. What does it take to take someone who's not athletic, who's getting older, and make them very, very competitive against even very skilled young opposition?
No, and everything you said, especially for no-gi, because I think no-gi is trending a lot right now, and it's people see no-gi like, oh, this is for young guys, this is like for who is explosive, who is athletic, and it's not true. Like I think everybody can be successful.
I do think
that as well.
the gi game does slow a match down just because there is just more friction, there's more handles to work with, but you'll be pleasantly surprised to see how much you can slow down even a very explosive athlete if you know how to grip and you know how to position your body. And if you can do these things from top position, you can surprise very athletic people.
Joanne, the other thing that caught my attention, you mentioned about the katagatame, the arm triangle from top. It's classic, like every single old person I ever seen doing jiu-jitsu, they always try that. And it's another position that Gordon is like the best at it as well. So it's kind of like the proof that
he does very well with it. And there's a few things you can do to. It's one of those subtle moves. It looks like a move you could learn in 5 minutes, but performed against someone who's very, very good, there's some details you need, and I wanted to flesh those out in this video and show exactly what it takes to put away someone who knows how to defend the move.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.